God tells Elijah to go to Horeb, also known as Sinai. That's the place where Moses himself goes to meet with God. And so he knows, okay, God is about to reveal himself to me in a special and a spectacular way. So he rushes off. 1 Kings 19, verse 11. Then he said, go out and stand on the mountain before the Lord. Here he is, ready for God to reveal himself in surely a powerful way. And behold, the Lord passed by, and a great and strong wind tore into the mountains and broke the rocks in pieces before the Lord. But, what does the Bible say? The Lord was not in that. He was not in the wind. And after the wind, an earthquake. But the Lord was not in the earthquake. And after the earthquake, a fire. But the Lord was not in the fire. And after the fire, what? A still, small voice. A whisper. Think about it. As he's seeing these revelations, as he's seeing the wind come through, he's thinking to himself, yep, God used a strong east wind to part the Red Sea. God must be in this. He remembers thinking to himself, yep, I remember that the Bible says that Mount Sinai quaked greatly when God came upon it for that revelation. I imagine him thinking to himself, yep, fire is surely a symbol of the presence of God. Nope, not this time. This time, God changes his pattern. He wasn't in the spectacular. He was in the stillness. Again, verse 12. And after the fire, a still, small voice. So it was when Elijah heard it that he wrapped his face in his mantle and went out and stood in the entrance of the cave. He's worshiping now. He's saying, wait a second. Self, do you hear that? I think I hear that. And he hears this whisper of the voice of God. Listen to me, church. God rarely shouts. A few times in the Bible, God makes himself known and reveals to himself in the spectacular. But most of the time in the scriptures, God simply whispers. So what does that mean for me? What does that mean for you? Listen, if God is speaking all the time, but if most of the time he's whispering, what does that mean for me? What does that mean for you? Listen, God is not going to try to compete with all the other voices that you bring into your life. He's the King of Kings and Lord of Lords. He will compete for nobody, for nothing. So you know what that means? I've got to hush up all these other voices in my life, and I've got to get quiet. And what does the psalmist say? What did he say? He said, be still and know that I am God. Somehow in the stillness, somehow in the quietness, somehow when I lower the volume on all those other voices that are competing in my life, when that happens, somehow that's when I can hear. It's not that he hasn't been speaking to you. Oh, man. It's just that there's too many voices going on. When we lower that, finally, say, okay, I can hear you now. I can hear you now. I can hear you now. There's this powerful book called Practicing the Presence of God by this 17th century monk known simply as Brother Lawrence. He has this whole backstory, but when he was in his middle portion of his life, he went to a monastery. He wanted to learn to develop a relationship with God. And, who's the young buck there? So he didn't have any role of prominence. He had the role of washing the dishes and cooking for all the more important monks. Oh, but somehow, amidst the clatter of pots and pans, he learned to listen to the quiet whisper of the voice of God. He never preached any sermons of note, but over time, he so began to become accustomed to listening to the voice of God that people began to seek out his custom. And they said, Brother Lawrence, would you teach us how it is that you've learned to listen to the voice of God? He ended up writing this book, and I invite you to read it. It's a powerful, simple book about his own practice of learning to listen to the voice of God. Look, all I know is that you, me, we, what I know is that we've got to stop playing around. I'm just saying. We've got to stop playing around. And we've got to make listening to the whisper of God our number one priority in life.